See them.
I can't see them. I can only see you.
But if I turn my machine,
Yeah.
kind of.
Hi. Yes, that's fantastic. Hi, Red River Valley. My name is Tanya Baker. I direct national programs at the National Writing Project, and I'm really excited to be talking to teachers all around the United States today who are working together on this national task jam. I would like to also let my colleague Sarah introduce herself. She's part of the leadership team for this project. And then we would love to tell you a little bit about the National Writing Project, about the Literacy Design Collaborative and our experience with that, and answer any questions or talk about anything else that you'd like to. And I know we're expecting another colleague, Maggie Brewer, but it seems like she's having some trouble logging on from her place. So if she joins us, that would be great. And if she doesn't, we are just sorry to have missed her. But Sarah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. My name is Sarah Woodard, and I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado. I'm a co-director of our Denver Writing Project site here, and I've worked with the Writing Project and the National Writing Project. I guess I participated in the Summer Institute in 2005. I think Tanya will be talking to you a little bit more about the National Writing Project. And I've co-directed our site since 2007. And during the school year, in addition to working with our National Writing Project and coordinating our young writers camps that we have in the summer, I also teach high school in a highly impacted turnaround school. So that's what I do. And I'm so excited to talk to you about Tasks Matter. I've been a part of some work with Tanya since 2011 with this work. So.
Is that possible?
Believe it or not.
That's funny. I was, this is an aside, but celebrating my daughter's birthday last night, and she was born in 2000, so whatever year it is, that's how old she is, right? So I feel like now our work with LDC used to be 11, and now it's 15.
I know. It's amazing.
Karen, what do you think would be helpful for us to say about the writing project? Should we do a sort of general introduction, or are you mostly writing project people?
We're about half and half. And so I guess maybe what would be helpful would be, just kind of an idea of what the National Writing Project tries to do for teachers nationwide. To support them in writing, and maybe talk about some of the resources that are available, whether people have gone through a summer institute or not. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
So I like to talk about the National Writing Project often in a sort of historic, my own, or actually autobiographical way. I first came in contact with the Writing Project in the late 90s in Maine, where I was a high school English teacher, and I went to the first Summer Institute of the Maine Writing Project. And the Writing Project is a national network. We have about somewhat fewer than 200 Writing Project sites around the country, and each one works in their community, both to have a summer institute for teachers who are already great teachers of writing, who really work to share their practice with each other and to get smarter about what they're so great at. So we used to came across a framework several years ago about competency development, and one of the things, it had a kind of framework where you could be unconsciously incompetent, like bad and not know what you're doing. You could be consciously incompetent, so you know you're having a hard time, but you don't really know how to fix it. You could be unconsciously competent, which, like, you're good, but you don't really know why, you're just kind of lucky. Or consciously competent. And I think I've really liked that framework for thinking about the Writing Project. It's often starts with teachers who are somewhere between unconsciously and consciously competent, and then builds people's consciousness about their competence, and then allows them to share it with other people. So all writing projects bring new teacher leaders into our national community, into their local community, and then into our national community through the Summer Institute, where teachers spend 3 to 5 weeks together, really writing together, digging into their teaching practice together, and learning from each other. And then those teachers become teacher consultants locally and sometimes involved in national projects where they share their practice with other teachers, either by providing professional development or professional learning communities together. So I tell everybody, as my job as the director of national programs, I have the best job in the world because I get to talk to teachers who are really great from all over the United States and from many different communities and different kinds of communities. And I direct national programs, which are opportunities for teachers who are part of the National Writing Project to work with other teachers around the country on problems of practice or areas of interest together. That's how I met Sarah 4 years ago. We started working with the Literacy Design Collaborative and their work when they were getting off the ground, sort of beta testing some of their ideas. And that's what I do, basically, is work with great teachers all around the country who are interested in the same problems or ideas or challenges in teaching. Karen, was that helpful? Is there anything else I could say? Or
I guess so. Kelly, do you have any other ideas for? Okay, I think that's probably. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to address? Okay, I think that was probably what we were looking for. Are you or Sarah going to talk about the partnership and kind of the collaboration with Assignments Matter?
Yeah, so I'll say a few words about Assignments Matter, and then I'll turn it over to Sarah, who's been involved since we first started working with the Literacy Design Collaborative. So we found out through the Gates Foundation, actually, we got connected to the Literacy Design Collaborative, which at the time was a brand new kind of startup idea about supporting people to make and share writing tasks and the curriculum that supports students towards success at those writing tasks. Sarah and I have worked with the Literacy Design Collaborative over 4 years. It's been a very iterative process. They've been working on their materials and their ideas and their understanding of teaching writing, just as the National Writing Project does, over and over, refining ideas, trying things out, putting more things in teachers' hands, refining again. We got to this task jam in large part because...
Well, I can hear them.
Oh, hi, Maggie.
Okay. Hi!
Hey! I'm going to just take a pause and let Maggie Brewer introduce herself now that we were able to get her connected. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie Brewer. I am in Frankfort, Kentucky, and I teach World Civ and Arts and Humanities to mostly 10th graders, but some older kiddos. And I've been working with the Writing Project since 2003, and I'm glad to see all you guys.
Maggie, I'm sorry, but because of some things we've heard from around the country, we have to ask everyone who logs in, is it snowing there today?
It's snowing! We have about 4 inches.
Oh my gosh! Here's a rather strange twist. Minnesota, which is known for snow, right?
Right.
Where we are, within a week, we've had 2 pretty significant incidences of freezing rain. Like we school in Moorhead 2 hours late yesterday because of that, but we have almost no snow.
Well, yes, we've been...
And yesterday it was almost 50 degrees here.
Oh, jealous.
I know, the weather's so strange, and I forgot to ask you because I knew you weren't. It's really our East Coast communities who are struggling with the weather today, so I forgot to ask, but I'm glad you gave us the report. So I was saying that we got really interested, I did, and many other people who teachers we were working with, got really interested over the time of working with the Literacy Design Collaborative. We're interested in the whole process, of course, but I became really interested in this idea about the writing task itself because I started to get a chance to look at a large volume of student work from teachers all around the country, some writing project teachers, some not writing project teachers. And what we could see that I had not been able to see, I hadn't had access to see at any time before, was that I saw some instances of really great teaching ideas that never quite came to fruition in the student work because the task that students had been asked to write to was confusing or unclear or didn't really match the instruction. So there was great instruction and an assignment, but they weren't well matched. And I suddenly became really interested in more deeply understanding and working collaboratively with teachers and teachers working collaboratively with others to really understand what makes a good writing task and how to revise toward a better writing task. That's a very brief history of how we got to this task jam today, but Maggie and Sarah have been key writing project teacher players for, as Sarah pointed out, since 2011. For that, so they've been key players in the writing project, thinking about writing and this the LDC tools for several years. So Sarah and then Maggie, maybe you want to say a little bit more about LDC or your work with LDC?
Yeah, so I think that there are several things that stand out to me when I think about Literacy Design Collaborative. And first of all, it absolutely, just like with the writing project, it has been incredibly valuable professional development in terms of thinking of the Common Core standards, teaching really important tasks that are aligned to the Common Core standards and are text dependent, and that are also, the intention behind it is to move students toward independence in terms of tackling these types of tasks in order to ensure that they are indeed college and career ready. That was a lot of buzzwords for you, but you know, it's really what it is. And I think that having been involved with Literacy Design Collaborative and the tools since 2011, as Tanya mentioned, it's evolved tremendously. And I will also say that I feel like my understanding of it is continually evolving and shaping as well. When we started the work in 2011, we brought together teachers from New York, Kentucky, Colorado, and of course friends from Idaho and California, and I think New Mexico and a few other places with the Writing Project Connections. And we worked together for over a year to each individually, all of the teachers, and individually and collaboratively, we created these modules and tasks and continually looked to one another for feedback and help. And I think that that's what's so valuable about what you're doing today, is that you are together as a group, collaborating and getting feedback from one another in terms of how to ensure that your students are getting the best instruction possible. So that's fantastic. I would also just say that a few of my big ahas and really important learnings with Literacy Design Collaborative is, and this maybe goes without saying, but not everything that we do in our classrooms has to be this exact template task. It is very important when we think about assignments and what we are asking students to do, but if I guess that I think about my students, and if all I did was like assignment task after assignment task after assignment task, I mean, man, they would not like me very well. And so, but I think that it can be really meaningful and important. And one of the things that I found is that this can be adapted and work in any kind of context and any grade level, which I think is pretty fantastic. Once again, the collaboration is key. And just two other things before I kind of wrap up, and then of course if Maggie will share, and then if you have any questions, we're happy to answer any questions. If you haven't taken any time, I know as teachers we are all incredibly busy, but a wealth of information and resources can be found on the Literacy Design Collaborative website. It's also incredibly overwhelming because there's so many resources. But I would say that the template tasks, which I'm guessing that you maybe have taken a look at some of those on the Literacy Design Collaborative website. If not, I'll put a couple of links in the chat that you can access if you'd like. So those are great resources. I have been involved for over a year now, well, almost a year, with national jurying of modules. So when teachers work on these tasks, there's opportunity for them to use core tools with the Literacy Design Collaborative to build out the entire, what they're calling, module. And it's my understanding from Literacy Design Collaborative, this would be an example of how it's still kind of evolving, that a module is not necessarily a unit. However, I don't want to bring in too much information right here, but Literacy Design Collaborative has also talked about how eventually they want to create module units, which I don't know exactly what that is. So the point is that a module or a task like you're working on today could be a few days, it could be a week, it could be a few weeks. It's just really dependent upon the task and what you're asking students to do. But regardless, you have the opportunity to take that task and really build out the instruction that is leading students to this task. And then gather some work samples, and you can submit it to the Literacy Design Collaborative to have it juried, which sounds a little bit scary, and it is a little bit, but the most important part about it is that it's giving you really valuable, meaningful feedback as an instructor. And so for almost a year, I've been part of some work with Literacy Design Collaborative where you go through some training to learn how to use the jurying rubric and tools. And then a few times a year, I think I've done this 3 or 4 times so far, you will be partnered up with someone across the country, and each of you reads this module, takes a look at the student work, jury it separately, and then you come together and you talk about this task and the instruction and the student work, and it is really, really powerful, amazing professional development, and it's helped me think a lot about my own instruction. And guided that as well. One other little aside, just a plug for the writing project and how the writing project can support this work as well, is that through a seed grant through the writing project, I've also been able to bring Literacy Design Collaborative professional development to my high needs school. And we're engaging in a year of study of Literacy Design Collaborative and disciplinary literacy. So there's just, I've just been very, I think, thankful for jumping into Literacy Design Collaborative and doing a lot of sense making over the last 3 or 4 years, because I'm continually learning, and I hope that all of you are able to find that in this work as well.
Thanks, Sarah. Maggie, why don't we have you talk a little bit about your Literacy Design Collaborative and NWP experience too, and then we can take any questions from Red River Valley. And of course, we want to have time too also after that to hear how your day's gone and what you've been doing. So, but first, okay. Maggie.
So I come from a district that was working with several schools in Kentucky to learn about LDC, and so we had several teachers from our school, and I was the only content area teacher that was invited from my school to work with LDC, so I had a really different experience. And then after working for a year in my district, then I came to work with Writing Project, and I really love the way that Writing Project works with LDC because it's much more collaborative and much more You know, we bring the whole working with a thinking partner and looking at how you can use LDC to work kind of for you and use it as one more method rather than trying to use it for every single unit that you're trying to teach. Like Sarah said, if you tried to use LDC for every single thing you teach, it would be a little overwhelming for both you and your students. I like to think as a content teacher that this isn't just one more thing that you're trying to do. This is something that you do as a means of trying to teach your content. Which as content teachers, we know that we have a lot to do, and this is a way to reach our goals rather than to add more work for ourselves. So, for example, as a social studies teacher, we have a lot of primary and secondary sources that we want to have our kids read, and of course, every content area, science teachers, math teachers, art teachers, we have a lot of things that we want our kiddos to read and things that we want them to write. And so this is one means of getting those. You guys doing okay?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get the my computer plugged in. Sorry. Oh, a perfect
Very
time.
nice sweater, Karen.
Sorry.
That was fine.
So I look at the templates as another way to communicate those, to help kids understand the ideas I'm trying to teach. Is another way, because the templates are based on after doing research or after reading something. It's a great way to help kids to understand that after you read something, you need to show that you understand what you've read, or after you research something, you need to show that you understand what you've researched. I also think that they're a great way to make sure that you're being clear in your assignments. Looking back on a lot of assignments that I've done in the past, I realized that a lot of times I haven't articulated what I really meant, and the template tests help you to be much more clear. They also help you to really, the whole module itself helps you to really be clear in your teaching process, because you have to really break it down and help kids to understand what goes into creating that final writing product. And I remember telling my assistant superintendent the first year that I worked with LDC that my kids created great work at the end, but that's because I'm a really good teacher. Sorry, that's kind of... But I said, you can't just throw these template tests out there and hope for the best. Like, you really have to do the process. You really have to teach your kids every step of the way. And Molly has the Karen, I think you may remember that Molly showed us her whole process behind how she starts with finding the template task and how she goes through each step of teaching it. And that's a really important process, and I'm glad that Molly kind of put that down on paper, because it really does take thinking through it step by step like that in order to get out of your kids what you want at the end. And so I do think that it does, that the template tests do, they do make a difference in my students' writing. But like Sarah said, they're not something that I do in every unit. I probably do a couple a semester, and I am using them. In Kentucky this year, we have a new it's a new evaluation system. They call it an effectiveness system, but we have to show student growth, and I'm using template tests in order to show how my students are growing from the beginning to the end of the year. I'm really excited to show how it works. So.
Are you using the rubrics as the primary way of gathering data for that?
Yeah, I am. And I'm showing, as a social studies teacher, it's so important to show how kids are able to use evidence. And I want to say that it is template 4 that utilizes evidence, and so that's what I'm using is. And what we did for our second example is we actually took a document-based question from AP European History and we fit it into a template task. And so it's pretty neat to show kids who are in regular World Civ history classes and have them writing an AP European History question. So I'm sure a lot of kids wouldn't think that they could do that, but when you put it into a template, they did a great job. So it's pretty neat.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in with two things as well. And I am also using the template task work for we have to collect evidence for a similar kind of effectiveness, like our body of evidence. So the same thing. So it's incredibly valuable, especially with the outcome of having students use evidence in their writing, because that's something that is cross-disciplinary. So it's been really meaningful in my school. And the other thing I had forgotten to mention that I always want to be very present of with this work, because we are writing project teachers, the importance of like Maggie was talking about, teaching the process and teaching the writing. I say this over and over again, but it always brings me back to that text, that chart in Because Writing Matters, of when writing is assigned versus when writing is taught. And I think that the teaching of the writing is so important in this process as well.
Absolutely. All right. Are you ready for questions?
We are.
Okay. Any questions? You hear the crickets? You did such a good job. Nobody has any questions. Could you hear Carrie?
I couldn't hear Carrie. Can you repeat
Okay,
the question?
her question is, can you talk a little bit, and I think it was Sarah who mentioned it specifically, can you talk a little bit about the text Because Writing Matters?
Oh.
Actually, Tanya might be better to talk about Because Writing Matters. It's a book published by, Tanya's going to know it better, a book published, gosh, was it when was it published?
God, don't ask me that.
Okay, sorry.
I read it when I went through, so it's...
Yeah, it's old.
I'll go grab it from the shelf.
I was actually looking, 2006.
And then there's an updated book.
Oh, I don't know where Sarah went. She went to grab the book.
Yeah, I'm here.
I got it.
Oh, she's got them both.
Yes. There we go. Yeah, I find this, it's a National Writing Project book, and I just think that I used it as a book study with teachers in a school I was working in several years ago, but it's kind of like it's a book I return to often in terms of just thinking about writing and across disciplines and the role of the writing project. I don't know. Maggie and Tanya?
I also return to Because Writing Matters often. It's a nice theoretical frame that starts from the idea that writing is important, and then sort of fills out why writing is important, and because writing is important, what does that mean about teaching? And because if it's important for teaching, then what does that mean about how we support teachers or come together as teachers to learn about it and make it our best practice? It's a nice framework for a lot of things that I do. And in fact, when you said that, Sarah, I'm working on another project with science teachers, and they're doing a great job teaching science and then having kids write about it, but in a way the writing gets assigned at the end and kind of tacked on. And we've been really thinking about that, how to help move that forward. And when you mentioned that chart, I was like, glanced at Kathleen across the table and said, oh yeah, we got to put that on our list. So for that project. So it is a text that's kind of a touchstone in our work.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? You're going to get those. Okay. Any other questions? All right. You wanted to hear a little bit about how things are going here.
We
and
do,
so we really have just kind of done the introduction to the work, kind of how this idea came about, and thinking about different types of products and different types of texts and different ways that people have been affected by the advent of Common Core. We, of course, wrote as soon as we got here. We've had some good snacks, some good food.
Excellent.
And, does anybody else want to offer any? You see what I'm working with here? Actually, they've been a pretty talkative group. So I think we'll have some. Can you hear Vicki?
No.
Okay. Can you say it louder?
We've done some problem solving, and I've gotten ideas ready that I can take back to the classroom and use with. I'm a special education teacher, and it's hard to figure out how to get writing into my classroom in a meaningful way for my students. And this has been very helpful for me to gather information to do that in a more useful way.
I am really glad to hear that. We have a few real superstar special education teachers in the writing project who really always push us to remember to think about how to work with special education teachers and a special education community. And I'm always so thankful when special ed teachers are here doing the work with us and beside us so that we can think about making those connections. So I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you told us.
Anything else?
Start thinking about the framework.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna start voice here. I'm excited for the work time, essentially.
Yeah, the problem about checking in with people in the middle of their day when they've got a framework and they're excited is like, I feel like we're standing between you and the opportunity to dig right in. So no wonder you don't have any questions. You're like, come on, we want to get back to it. So that's excellent.
So, okay.
Great.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
All right.
And we hope to see some tasks from your site in the Google Plus community. We're really looking forward to seeing what people are doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.